Good evening. How's everybody doing? Let me see if I can get. Do, 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 do.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. It's good. How are you doing? I was like, wait a minute. How do I answer that?
Oh, good. It was it like that's not the
We're
none
off
of
to a
these.
great start.
Yeah, none of these aren't the tough questions, Kate, that we're gonna talk about tonight.
I don't know, my brain's like in history mode. So I was like, oh, the present day. I had to think about today? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm like 60 plus years ago.
yeah. I have to admit, I had to take a nap today. I've been running on like fumes all week because
Oh,
this was my fifth day in a theme park.
yeah. It's
It's
a
a
lot.
lot. I don't like if you're on a trip, right? It's different because you're not like traveling as much between the places, but you really need breaks. Just if you're on a long trip, make sure you take a resort day. You're gonna
Yeah,
need it.
I'm not good at that. So I'm wrecked by the time I'm done with those Disney weeks. I can barely function because I don't sleep and I walk all day, and so I'm terrible at that. I'm hoping though when
Yeah.
I'm there for my extra long trip to take a resort day. That's my goal.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot that you can experience and explore. You could even do like a scavenger hunt in some places and uncover. There's a lot of Disney resort history. Like Coronado is a really fun one to explore.
Yeah. I mean, I probably will just aim to get off my feet and do some writing. So maybe I'll just sit by the pool and write.
Leb just said, Kate's brain, how to salutations.
That's accurate.
It's
Like
the
I'm like, oh yeah, I have to like be sociable. I just want to dive into the history. I'm so
right.
like, oh right, I gotta be human first.
I also have so many tabs open right now that my computer is like, dude, you need to chill.
I know. I had to choose between videos to because I was like, I can't have all these open at once on my iPad. So
Yeah.
we got some good stuff coming though. I'm excited for this one.
Or oh, we should announce what I spy with my little eye. I don't know
Oh
if anybody noticed. There's happens to be a new shirt, a blue shirt. What's going on?
yeah, so I decided to design something new for this series that's available at DisneySisteron.com. There's a link in my bio to my shop, but it is says the legendary Schweitzer Falls. We'll go over it later, is what the text says, and then in the very it's hard to see because it's on my shirt, but here it says O2H Club, and then the back is actually a quote from Albert Schweitzer that we'll probably have to we'll talk about later
I could
because I
see
can't
it.
read
I
a
could see
phone.
it. Here, hang on. You just turn and I'll read it.
Hold on. Hold on, I'm connected. Hold on.
I'm connected. All right, it says search and see whether there is not some place where you may invest your humanity.
Did you get it? I couldn't hear.
Yes, I read it. That was actually more of a I got panicked a little bit. I was like, "Oh gosh, can I even read?"
We're killing it with those regular social skills today. So, yeah, so this shirt actually has is a little bit special. We'll talk about the history of Albert Schweitzer and the Falls in this episode tonight. But this shirt, I'm actually going to donate $2 to the Water Project, which, if you don't know what that is, it is an organization that helps get clean water access for people in sub-Saharan Africa. So every shirt you purchase, $2 will go towards the Water Project because I felt like that was very fitting based on Albert Schweitzer's history, and also I just really love that project. So um, we'll talk more about Albert Schweitzer and exactly why I made this shirt as we get into the episode. But if you want one, it's on the website, link in bio. So,
Yeah. I I told you this. I think it's one of the I mean, I like your shirts, but that one is I don't know, maybe it's just because we're doing the Jungle Cruise and I'm
I know.
nostalgic
I'm
for
like, this is
Jungle
Jungle
Cruise
Cruise.
stuff, but yeah.
Funny, I should have made one for the Haunted Mansion series. I'll have to go back, make something.
Yeah.
It's funny that I never made anything for that one.
That is interesting that you never made a anything Haunted Mansion. You have Pirates, you have Jungle Cruise, you have Tiki Room. Yeah, I mean kind of yeah. Everything that we have done major attraction. You need to
Except for Haunted Mansion. I
and
know.
Pinocchio. You haven't done Pinocchio's
I did
Daring
Pinocchio.
Journey.
Maybe I'll do Haunted Mansion first and then Pinocchio. But yeah.
Oh, but his pants. His poor
His
pants.
pants. His painted pants.
His painted pants.
Well, should we get things rolling? 'Cause we got lots to
Yeah,
talk
but I
about.
have to go back to go forward.
Okay. Should we start the show first and then you can go
Yeah,
back?
let's start. Sure. Let's do that. Hang on. I just found a really good picture and now I'm on a whole other thing. Give
Oh
me a
no,
second.
there's so many rabbit holes with
I
this
know,
ride.
I know.
I went down
Okay.
like 6 rabbit holes today, and I was like, I have to dig myself out, or this episode will be like 3 years long.
Right. Okay. I'm ready. Why don't you should do it. You do it today.
Okay. Okay. Welcome everybody to Distory with Kate and Kirk. My name is Kate, aka the Disney Cicerone, and joining me is my wonderful co-host Kirk from Walrus Carp. Tonight we're going to be continuing our series of the Jungle Cruise, History of the Jungle Cruise, and we'll be talking about mainly construction. How did they build the Jungle Cruise, and what were some of the interesting things that they did along the way to do so? Maybe some problems that they ran into. Who inspired parts of the ride? So we're going to dig into that history tonight, and we found both Kirk and I think, have found some very fascinating things to share with you guys, and we're really excited about it. How you doing, Kirk? What you got?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you. No, I like how you did an amazing intro and you still botched the hi, how are you?
Thanks. I appreciate the support.
No, it was great. It was great. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for the amazing intro. And for
I'll see
those
myself
that
out.
for those that can't see, Kate, who are listening, Kate has a new shirt, a really great Schweitzer Falls shirt on DisneyCicerone.com. So you can be a part of that O2H club and show your support. And it also, $2 is getting donated to help some clean water efforts. So I just wanted to, little pluggy plug.
Yeah. $2 from every shirt will go towards the Water Project, which promotes. They provide direct access to clean drinking water for people in sub-Saharan Africa. And there's a specific reason why I chose this shirt and that donation. So we'll get into that as when we get to Schweitzer Falls in this episode. But it is available on DisneyCicerone.com if you're interested in getting your own Schweitzer Falls shirt and also helping donate to the Water Project.
Yeah. So, all right, I'd prefaced before we started this episode that I need to go backwards in time. And we had talked about the origin story of this and the inspirations, and mainly speaking about the true life adventure docuseries with animals as well as the African Queen. However, I got into a spirited conversation with former Imagineer who has worked extensively on the Jungle Cruise, Kevin Lively, and he prompted me to look at another film. And I didn't look into this film. And he goes, yeah, you really should. And this will actually tie in a little bit later to artistically our thatched roof debate as well, which we'll get to in a little bit. But the name of the film, I'm going to flip this around, is Mogambo, which starred Clark Gable as well as Ava Gardner and Grace Kelly. And it basically was a safari adventure that occurred in the early 50s. And it's a safari, but it's like this love triangle between these two ladies in the jungle. However, you'll notice if you look at the imagery, you get lots of that thatched bamboo. And even if you look at Clark Gable's clothing, it's very what I would consider the now style of the Jungle Cruise kind of clothing. Remember in Skipper Canteen, the one book that was like the 50 Shades of Khaki?
Yes.
That's kind of what I get here with Magumbo.
Oh, I love that. And I love Clark Gable and Grace Kelly.
Yeah. Iconic. And yeah, I mean, African Queen, we clearly see the distinctions between the way that the boat is shaped and whatnot, but there is a lot of references to Magumbo as well.
No, I love that. So put it on your movie list for this week, historians. I feel like we really should do watch parties of these things because they would be so much fun. So
I think it would make things a little bit more well-rounded at some point, but you know.
Yeah, that would be really fun. I love that. So, thank you for going back before going forward because I think that was an important detail for us to have in this series. So we're talking about ride construction, and I know that I'm going to go back just a tiny bit to a previous episode to mention when we're talking about true life adventures and the way that they designed the kind of like the shape of the ride, so to speak, was kind of they were originally going to have it be an island in the middle of a lake that you would go around, and then we talked about how everybody would go and look on one side of the boat and the other people wouldn't see anything and how that wasn't fair. So they eventually decided on they were going to put a river through the middle of the island, so you would go kind of across the lake on a boat and then go down a river that was in the middle of the island and then go back. But they had a lot of problems with like how fast they could load people, and I think they even suggested a speedboat, and then that was like obviously not what Walt wanted. He wanted it to be a slow moving boat ride. So then they ended up, I'm like, okay, well, we'll just do a river ride, not this like ditch the lake concept. So that's kind of how we got to this point. Now they actually have to construct the river. How are they going to go do that? So luckily we have a lot of footage from this. Like, they recorded
we do.
pretty
We
much
do.
the whole thing, which is so great.
Now I have queued up the video with narration of Tony Baxter, so whenever we need to chamber that.
Okay. So the river length is 1,640 feet. So this is the river's length, but it looks kind of like it's a very kind of crazy mess of a river. If you look at it from an aerial view, it's very like serpentine and kind of bizarre, which actually I think helps you feel a little bit lost when you're in it because you can't predict where you're going to go next. But basically, the way that they did this was Harper Goff and the Imagineers relied on drawings, right? We can see that in the concept art. That's what they did. They were animators. So that's how they were going to build things. But when they got to, thank you, Kirk, when they got to the construction bid stage, the contractor shockingly demanded blueprints instead of drawings. Who knew, right?
Wait, what?
What? So they had to figure out how they were going to lay this out. And this is like one of my favorite Jungle Cruise stories. Some of you might have already heard this one before, but so Harper Goff took a stick and he traced like the left side of the river, and then he walked 10 to 15 feet across and then traced the right side of the river, and then had the bulldozer go down the middle and pull the dirt out between the like, and they put stakes down, and then they have the bulldozer went down the middle and then put the dirt on the sides. So that's how we got the banks of the Jungle Cruise, was just from the channel of the Jungle Cruise. But do you want to talk about what they did with the Jeep, Kirk?
Well, yeah, I just
Works?
hang on. Let me find where's my Walt picture? I have so many Walt pictures in this one. I am there we go. So they actually there was multiple cars that they would drive through the trenches of the Jungle Cruise to actually see how the scenes would kind of lay out. And then of course, remember we had talked about plants and landscaping the previous week, so you can see one of the trees in that planter box that were moved over this way. But I love this picture of Walt as he's just driving through the trenches of the Jungle Cruise. So it's funny to think about these places not being flooded with water and not being cement and not being finished. So every time I look at these pictures, I just go, I think we're all a work in progress. We're all a Jeep in a Jungle Cruise trench, and eventually,
So true.
eventually
Yeah.
we'll get through the track,
Yeah, I mean everything starts somewhere, right? And that's so true of us too. Well, so do you know much about the Jeep? Because I've got a few notes on
No,
it.
have at it. Have at it.
Okay. So what they would do before the crew finished digging down too deep or building up too much, Harper Goff would hop into this Jeep and then drive around and see how much space was needed for the boats. So what they did was they actually created a frame that they put around the Jeep, and they attached it to it that was the length of the boats and the width of the boats, so that they would know if it hit or scraped or didn't have enough turning radius that they needed to fix it. So it was like a giant frame that they stuck on the Jungle Jeep there.
Can I say something about that? Interject without
Yeah.
naming names. I have been on an experience where it was not on a track. and it was a freestanding boat, and the canal is very narrow. So it's very plausible, based on your pilot, you may scrape against the side or smash into other areas. So it's totally plausible, and I think being on a track is a great it's a great way to make it more efficient.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely have some notes on the track, but they said I have a quote from Harper Goff. He said, "We finished laying out the Jungle Cruise River with all its twists and turns and made a mock-up of the cruise boat and mounted it on the Jeep so we could fit it around the course of the river and under the waterfall. I was anxious about it and looked forward to making that first run with no one looking in case there were problems. But before I could start, Walt came roaring up. He had heard I was going to make a test run and wanted to come along. Luckily, it went very well."
Yeah, I
Walt
love that.
roaring up.
Should I kind of feel like this is the point where I should be interjecting our video here. And even without, we can do it without Tony Baxter or with Tony Baxter, because it shows us in the trench,
Yeah,
driving in the trench.
let's for sure do that, and then we'll have to come back. We'll put pin in it, but we got to come back to that Nash Rambler because I got a whole bunch of history on that. But let's definitely go to the
About the
video and talk
actual
about that.
vehicle. Okay. Well, why don't you do the vehicle first before we climb aboard into it?
Okay, so the Nash Rambler, I'm gonna have to pull up a video in a second for that. But the Nash Rambler was going around the river because it was part of a promotion, because it was actually their sponsor, American Motors. So this was all a promotional stunt to have the Rambler driving around in this trench. Okay, it was. It's interesting because they have an ad from 1955 for Nash Rambler that is an interesting part of Disney's history because of it starring Mickey Mouse and him and Minnie Mouse assuming they're married because they've got two kids in the back seat, which was just like unheard of. And they have this, yes, you can see how they put Disneyland on the side, they put Disneyland on the back. I think it's gold leaf that's on there. And this was a big giant ad, not only for Disneyland, but also for Nash Rambler. And so I do have the commercial, and I feel like you guys have to see at least part of it. They're a very mid-century modern style of animation because they were made, they were produced not by Disney Studios, but by Walt's niece, Phyllis Bounds, and her husband, George Hurrell. And their company, Hurrell Productions, operated on the Disney lot at first and drew on Disney artists and Disney resources to produce its TV spots. So it's not officially Disney, but it's related to Disney. And so that's why like Mickey's storyline is like Mickey and Minnie didn't get married, right? But how come they're driving around with two kids in the Nash Rambler? So they also, before I show you this commercial, the parallel parking scenes in this were shot on the Disney lot, as was there's an overhead shot demonstrating the car's tight turning radius, which was filmed from the roof of one of the sound stages on Disney Studios. So very much tied into Disney Studios thing. So let me see if I can get it queued up because that wasn't the video I had ready first. But
Millions of people viewing Nash cars at Disney's greatest show on Earth. Luckily, the Nash News covered this Disneyland story. The
how
Nash
nice of them.
News.
All right, I don't know how loud this is going to be, so brace yourselves.
Is she a dream? What style? A good looker, huh? A continental beauty. She's here. She is.
It's a completely new idea in automobiles. The daring, dazzling 1955 Rambler, now at all Nash dealers. Never before has a car so fine been priced so low. Here's a whole new idea in styling. The rakish Continental look with plenty of room for the whole family. Here's a new idea in luxury. The new 1955 Rambler offers complete year-round air conditioning that warms in winter, cools in summer.
Live a little. Drive a Rambler.
The new Rambler, a car that handles and parks like a dream. A car with the shortest turning radius of any sedan in America. Here's the new idea in safety. Double strength, single unit body. Stronger, safer, completely rattle-proof. See and drive the new 1955 Rambler, now on display at all Nash showrooms. Still another reason why American Motors means more for Americans. See your Nash dealer.
Get more car for your money when you buy More money for your car when you trade. Live a little. Drive a Rambler.
Mickey's children. Drive
Yeah,
a Rambler.
yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I guess there is new magic in every mile, as we
Live
just
a
met.
little, Kirk. Come on.
Well,
Drive a Rambler.
well, yeah, yeah. This kid's really living a little. Look at him.
Like none of them had seatbelts. Zero seatbelts
Actually,
in that.
I'm into this Nash Ramblers. Look at that. It's like a futon the way it lays back. If I could lay down in a car like that, I'm in. The Nash Ramblers. I'd be living in style.
I like its styling. Not gonna lie. I think it's a pretty car.
It's no what was it? The Family Truckster. What was the name of that one? And I think you know what's crazy is like they drove this thing all over the place inside the park. You know, like here you go. It's in Fantasyland. Just if,
Yeah, it was one of its major sponsors for Disneyland back in the day. So that's why we have it driving around the Jungle Cruise, because they're going to show it's got that tight turning radiuses and everything, because you didn't have those in the Jungle Cruise. So yeah, isn't that amazing? So that's my little spiel. There's a whole bunch more history on American Motors, but we're sticking to the Jungle Cruise today, so I won't go into all of it. But yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well,
why we see that.
there's a. I mean, the history of using sponsor to pay is still like Tron is by Enterprise. Like
Right.
that's just the way
People
of
mover, right?
yeah.
They
It's
got
yeah
pretty
the
much
people
Tomorrowland.
which
Sponsors of tomorrow.
come on Space Mountain Refurb by Enterprise.
Come on, Enterprise, are you listening?
How many rental cars are you guys got?
Yeah, they could sponsor 2 attractions. They're not doing too poorly these days. Just
No,
saying.
no. Okay, let me put the volume up here and flip this back around. We can go into the Jungle Cruise. Now, do you want me to go a little bit further back? I skipped a little bit where the boat was and went more to where
Do
the
you want to
cars
show
are.
that model real quick? Because we talked about that model last week. That there's this model that is actually on display right now at Hollywood Studios. That's what we see here. But we don't see
This is
all
a
of
model
it.
of Adventureland. I've never seen it in color, other than it was installed at Disneyland in a preview center area and resided there many years, but I've never seen it photographed in color, so this is kind of, again, a very unique element. Some of this was used in early...
I'm going to pause because where do I have... Hang on. I have a... Where is my model picture? I can't see any of the clip part. Here it is. There it is.
Oh, I'll pull up mine while you have the video. Here, I'll go find it.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I got it. It's right here.
So, yeah, so this is where we have that thatched boat that we were talking about at the beginning of the episode. You can see it really clearly there, that there's that one. And I actually have, well, we'll do boats in a few minutes. Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't get too caught up. All right.
I know.
Cool.
I got excited. I was like, I've seen the boat.
I know. I get it.
Looks like they put Davy Crockett at the front. Yeah, or it's Indiana Jones. And this is about where today you'll find the piranhas, just after Schweitzer Falls.
If you're in Disneyland.
Now there again is that stand of eucalyptus, which is there to this day and provides a great blockage so you don't get the very radically different quality of Main Street from the jungle. It's beautifully obscured by that row of trees. I'm going to point out a couple of trees in here. The 2 large palms stood at the front of Ron Dominguez's house, which was on the property and was sold to Walt. And they were beautiful, full-size specimens of palms. And we, to this day, call that the Dominguez palm. And when you're getting your next Fast Pass for the Indiana Jones ride, take a look at what's right to your right, and you'll see that palm that's in the picture right now.
And Ron Dominguez was the owner of the property.
He was the son. And he went on to become a ride operator at Disneyland and actually became the head of running Disneyland for many, many years.
So you can see them bulldozing and running literally just regular cars through
The
these
two
trenches
trees
as
that were
well.
upside down there became banyan roots. Those were walnut trees. And
There's your trees,
Bill
Kirk.
Evans got the idea of cutting roots off, turning them upside down, and making them look like amazing jungle, gnarly old stumps. And I thought it was beautiful because, again, they were trying to get the most value out of everything they could, and those were left over from the orange groves. We're looking out towards the hub. This facility here was the Adventureland Veranda, which eventually became the Tiki Room. Now, Harper Goff, who was the art director on the Jungle Cruise and also did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and the Vikings and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, told me a wonderful story that is very different from how we would design the layout for this jungle ride. He took a stick and with the bulldoze operator, he drew what would be the left side of the water and then went about 10 feet over and drew what was the right side of the water. And then he said, all right, take all the dirt in between these two lines and pile it up and make the banks on either side of this. And that was how they carved out this ride.
So they didn't have to haul the dirt away.
They didn't have to do any drawings or anything. They just, did it right there with two guys working in the field. It's amazing. Amazing how beautiful the track layout is. I think it's one of the most convoluted trails you can imagine, and in so doing makes it seem like you've gone all over.
And this is Harper
There
Goff
it
on
is.
the
Here's
right.
Harper
I
with
love
his
this.
model of the rock work for Schweitzer Falls. And I think having the backlot.
I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, because we could. Yep.
We don't want to go. We don't want to go too far ahead. We'll. Yep.
Do you want to fast forward just a little bit to the part where they're doing the tracks? Do you want to show that part?
Yeah. Hang on. Let me just get to
So
that part.
they bent the rail for the tracks using a machine, which I think is really fascinating. How they kind of make it work, and so he'll pull up a clip for that.
Now this machine is actually bending the track. You can see the guys sliding it as it makes that curve. And there would be a limit to the tightness of the radius that boat could do, so they had to be completely accurate on that so that the tail end of the boat didn't slam into the bank. It lasts very long. Again, those are the two palm trees from Dominguez Estate. This was a beautiful loading dock, and I don't know why it was taken out other than I heard that the jungle grew up so much that the idea of watching the boats from that top deck became a moot point.
All right, we'll talk about more of that when we get to the Q episode as well. But for the tracks, when he talked about how they had to be careful going around those curves, that actually was true. Even today, the skippers have to be careful going around like the C and S curves near the hippo pool and the falls in particular, because the back of the boat will actually lift off the tracks and then they get stranded. So the skippers slow down specifically for those spots so that they don't get derailed. But they did add a fin in the 1970s that helped alleviate that problem. It just kind of just added something to the bottom of the boat that made it so that it wouldn't unlatch as much because of the wakes of the boats. It was largely that was what caused it. So it was interesting because Kirk actually found, so proud of you, Kirk. You found some document that is the standard operating procedures for the Jungle Cruise. And I was reading through that, and they do say caution will be exercised at all 90-degree turns at the falls, leaving Hippo Pool, and particular attention must be paid to boat speed approaching these points. Excessive speed at these points, followed by a marked decrease in speed, will allow the wake to catch up with the boat, causing the boat to be lifted out of the trough. So that was really interesting. It's right there in the SOP.
Yeah, so let me. I'm going to show you Disney World because I couldn't find Disney, like a lot of Disneyland, but similar ride style. So you can see the tracks without any water. Multiple pictures of that groove and that inlay, and you can see some of the metal as well inside the interior of that track. But I love seeing these pictures with no water at all. Like, look, this is the boa snake section, and you can see the root system below and that big sweeping curve. It's just a different way to view something that you know so well. The African velt we're coming up against, because it's always amazed me because we know that the skippers control. Oh, here you go. This is actually a really great picture where it shows the cement being built up.
I think
The hippos aren't
that's
even in
Disney
place
World
yet.
though, right?
This is all Disney World, but I didn't have good Disneyland pictures, so
Yeah,
I
I've got
had
like
to
a good
grab
Disney World one
what I
too.
could get.
It's the elephants. But yeah, I think that the Disney World one, they built it differently so that it is like this trough instead of a pole or a bar
The
like
steel
Disneyland.
steel.
Yeah. I think they learned from Disneyland, and then there's like, well, this is a constant problem with these boats, so I think they constructed that version a little bit differently, at least from everything that I have seen, because it looks really different than all of that video footage we have from Disneyland. And you're right, I don't actually see any photos of that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it was really, really challenging. I couldn't find it in any of the videos that we watched. There wasn't anything on there. Since you know what? I think we should go to just boat design in general before we go, because I want to talk about boat propulsion.
Yeah, I mean, I think
So,
we're already talking about boats, so I think that makes sense. Let's do it.
okay. So, again, I'm going to rely a little bit on Kevin Lively. I did get a chance to ask him specifically about the thatched roofs, of why did we lose that in the model that we had saw before versus like the canopies. And a big part of it, and this is not confirmed, but he feels it's similar to the Haunted Mansion, where the Haunted Mansion is supposed to be. So what you're actually holding right there is the Kevin and Jody model, and that's the one that Kevin Lively actually appreciates and likes and has in his own collection. However, we never see that one actually get built. And his thought process, Kevin Lively's thought process, is that it's possible because the Haunted Mansion, was pristine on the outside and the ghosts take care of the inside, is that Walt didn't want the park to look run down. So instead of getting that really pristine or more rustic style steamer boat, which we find in this model, as well as what Kate has up, the Kevin and Jody model, we are getting more of these really nice, like kind of boating style vessels, like steamboat, nice pristine vessels, versus a more rustic, adventure-y, African Queen, dirty style, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I thought that might be why, but I didn't want to assume and then say this is why this is. So I appreciate
Well, I mean,
the input
like
to
I said,
that.
it's an assumption. They made 500 of these models as well. They're really, really pretty. They go on auction
They're
for like
gorgeous.
$4,000 when they do. And remember, we talk about that slatting, and that came from. Get rid of this. Where's my that slatting style? Also, we get from Magumbo, because they use it. I mean, you can see it on the walls. It looks exactly like that Harper Goff concept art that Kate has up currently. So.
I love that. No longer a Distory mystery. We have solved the mystery.
No longer. Well, I mean,
We sort of.
we're assuming.
Partially. We've solved the
But
mystery of where
I
that
think
was
it's
influenced
I think it's a
from,
good.
but not, yeah, what happened to it.
But but instead of getting that rustic, we end up getting this.
I love it. It's so great.
I'm showing a picture for those that are listening of Walt in his skipper hat, like not even a skipper hat, in his like captain's hat. Which, oh, hang on, let's leave that up. That's a great picture. So you'll notice, obviously Walt is wearing his Sunday best with a suit. That's just how he preferred to be seen and filmed and photographed. But the skipper on the right hand side with Kate, or the left hand side if you're watching hers, it's more of like a relaxed t-shirt with a striped print. That's something to be noted, because the Jungle Cruise skippers originally didn't have a strict uniform. And in fact, most of the time the skippers would just wear Hawaiian shirts and sun hats, or
Whatever they
golfing
got.
straw style hats. So yeah, they literally would wear. Look, this guy's in flip flops with a Hawaiian shirt and like a somewhat safari style hat.
Can
Like,
you
I think it's so.
imagine?
They literally. That's it. There was. I have it when we went to the breweries. who was 50s in Japan. They had so much fun, and I don't want to get too much into it, but one of the things that they would do is they would, because the wheels didn't really do anything, they would take a screwdriver and take the wheels and loosen them, and then when guests weren't looking, like behind their back, they would loosen it and go, "Wait, who's driving this thing?" And they'd have the wheel in their hand, like they, like none of this. That was not in the SOP.
No.
But this style of cruise when it first starts out in the 50s is supposed to be more like true life adventures, historical, and we'll get into scripts and everything in the future. But we are looking at, and I think this is a good transition, the Congo Queen, which of course is, we're talking about the African Queen, is the little bit of that inspiration. And here I found this way. This is over in California in
Yeah,
your
we talked about
Bengal
that.
barbecue. It's a picture of literally the African Queen, and of course have our monkey who is a part of SEA and from Mystic Manor, which I just thought was
And
cool that they actually
Albert
had.
Paul's picture is
I
on the
thought it was
table
in
too.
Spokane. It is not. That barbecue. Yeah, and we'll get into Albert Falls in a hot second, but I have a lot of pictures for that as well. All right, what else do I have for the skipper boats? Oh,
I have
I wanted to
so
talk about
so
propulsion
many.
systems. Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
No, why don't you talk about propulsion systems? I'm going to try to pull up, I think I have a picture of them actually being constructed. So why don't you do that?
Okay, we're gonna go back to the African Queen for a second, and I'm gonna show you a picture, multiple props, and from the actual African Queen itself, right? So from the film, it actually this boat gets commissioned, and you can actually go to Key Largo and ride the African Queen. It was saved. However, it was built in 1912 by the Lytham Shipbuilding in England, which I actually found these, or Lytham, sorry, Lytham Shipyard, and they had a bunch of, I mean, these are larger ones, these steam vessels from the early 1900s, but this was a 1917 style steamer ship, and a lot smaller too. Mostly what the Lytham company made was much larger vessels, and if you wanted to know, if you're a British person, it's just northeast
You're
of
British.
Manchester and Liverpool. Well, I mean, like it'll give you an idea of where this
Or you
from. This
go
was
to
like a
England.
British, yeah. Or you could go to England, or you could, just
So
pretend
if
you're
you're
English
human,
or
it's
British.
in England.
If you're human, I got, I have a. Oh, so let me go to the SOP. This is from Walt Disney World, but Disneyland used a similar setup. So this is an actual primary source document from Walt Standard Operating Procedure. This was from October 1st, 1971. The Operations Division Department Jungle Cruise, opening date October 1, 1971. Number of boats 16, maximum crew 26. The trip time 9.5 minutes. Capacity per boat 31. Theoretical 1,230. The length of channel was 2,000 feet. Total number of animated figures 153. But the big thing on here is the type of engine, because I and it is a natural gas. We also had a there was one that wasn't natural gas. There was also a regular gas one, and Palmer made submerged engines. So quiet, compact, submergible engines to help power the Jungle Cruise. So when you see your skipper and it's really loud and it's hard to hear the skipper, you can thank the Palmer M60 for that. So enjoy.
Thanks, Palmer. It's great.
Yeah. What? And also, you've made every single skipper have ADHD, and like as they just wiggle the knob, like you'll see them, like they push it forward, they push it back. I think they like to click.
Yeah. That's true. I have seen them do that.
They do it all the
So
time.
the original plan for the boats was to they hoped that the river's current would just carry them downstream, but they realized pretty quickly that that was just not going to happen. So that's why they installed these. And they had a big concern about gasoline engines because they didn't want a fire. It was a safety concern, and so that's how they ended up with natural gas, with diesel natural gas boats. So. When they designed these boats, they're 27 foot boats. They're 2 tons of fiberglass, and they hold 36 passengers. And this was one of the most extensive uses of this new material fiberglass in like the world at that point. They were really pioneering at this point. And so I have a quote from Harper Goff that says, "We had the Navy watching us all the time, and when we put the boats in the water, they got permission to come out and they took pictures of everything." Then he says that was really pioneering in those days. So the Navy actually was like watching what they were doing because it was impressive. And so I have a little video of them constructing the boats here. You can see them. This is before they're in the water. And I actually do have like a...
One thing I couldn't find the underside of the boats. I tried and I failed terribly.
I think you can see them when they lift them into the water in this. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But I'm trying to remember. I think it's also... I'll have to look. I think it's in another part of this. But they had antiqued mahogany, stained wood, bright brasswork, and black demi-stacks, which we've seen from the African Queen. And the striped canvas canopy, which we talked about in the previous episode for landscaping. It was not just it wasn't just decorative. It wasn't just like keep the sun and the heat off of you. It was also so you can only see this much. It controlled what the people saw, right? Disney was all about the show and controlling camera angles. You think about that. So you could only see what was here. You couldn't see the fact that the jungle wasn't like 1,000,000 feet high, right? It was still pretty young at that point. It had only been growing for a year. So having that canopy on it really controlled what you saw of the landscaping. And that was a big part of it. So, let me see if I can go find that other footage of that real quick. Kirk, do you have something? I have a whole bunch.
Okay,
more of the
I
boats,
do.
but...
I do have something to talk about. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to just propulsion. So when these things were, as Kate had mentioned about fire in the SOPs, it mentions, and I have to now look when I'm closer to the front of a skipper to try to see one of these gauges, but it will say what the water temperature is that's running through the engine. So the natural gas boats have a different temperature than the diesel boats. The natural gas boats have 160-degree water temperature. However, there is a degree variance above or below. However, if you experience overheating, as you assume command of your boat, notify your supervisor immediately. Do not the boat. It comes to boat rotation and the temperature is more or less than the normal temperature or the allowable variance. Again, notify your supervisor, but do not operate the boat. If it overheats on the jungle, stop your boat and fire 3 shots. And operators should continuously watch their temperature gauge. I really need to find these temperature gauges now because I had no idea and now I need to see more. But you had mentioned that you're on a rail, a trough. The boats can go out of the trough, which I thought was crazy too. So back when they used the pistols more, they would use them to basically signal back at the loading dock if they were having distress or issues. So if you did 6 consecutive shots, like fire, you were out of the trough. And do not attempt to move the boat if you believe you are out of the trough. So that little cement railing section, if you felt the boat was out. So yeah.
Yeah, stay
So
in
that
your
was
trough.
cool. Stay.
I
Yeah, stay in your trough.
have a picture, a video of them lifting the boats in here, Kirk. Look.
Oh, okay. So I can now see. Can you pause it real quick? Pause, 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 pause. No, go back. You can. Do you think that is for? Do you think that's for staging those 4 pylons with wheels, or do you think that's for Do you think they actually are sitting on that underwater as well? Do you know what I mean? Because it's got little
Yeah, I'm not
feet.
sure.
It's got 4 little feet. I
That's for
wonder
sure
if
where it gets
they're
connects to
running.
it.
Yeah, I mean, something has to run on that rail, but I wonder if they're supporting sides as well. So yeah, it's just super confusing to me, and I'm curious. I need to know more.
Okay, so then somebody asked if how do they do repair work on them? How do they connect them if they get disconnected? Well, this video goes on to kind of give you a little glimpse into that, which I love. There is a guy who's kind of snorkeling under the boat to go and connect it, which I think is
Yeah.
just amazing. So
And you did see a propeller there. On the very back there was a very small prop. I don't know what size it was, but you can tell that they are using an actual propeller versus like a grinded gear kind of situation. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Could
yep,
you
for
imagine
sure.
being in that water? Yeah, I could imagine being in that water.
Well, it's not
Be
dirty
horrifying.
per se. I mean, it is now. I mean, it is
It's
with guests, but it's gross. But it's dyed to look this way. So this
yeah.
was the turbidity of the water was made it look this color. So it wasn't just
That
all like
that
really
visibility is so
grossness.
bad though.
Yeah, I don't know
I don't
how
know.
they
It
would see
freaks me
it.
out being in murky water, you know?
Yeah, this is also them. This is when they were going through it to test the waterfall with the boat on the rail. I tell you, they have so much great footage of this. I'll post some of this in our Discord in the Distorians Lounge channel, so you guys can, or the Distory channel, so you guys can see some of this footage. But yeah, it's just amazing how much footage we have of all of these things, of them testing things, of them fixing things. It's just so well documented because you can tell that filmmakers made the park. They're like, let's make a film about us making this film of a park. So, love it.
I love that
Um,
though, you know? I mean, so I'm a huge proponent of documenting the process because the process is very messy and it's really fun to look back at the mess after you have the completed creation. So
yeah.
whether that's a piece of art or whether that's like for me, I have all of this stuff that seemed silly at the time from Walrus Carp and creating our company. Like I have all the shirts that I used and modeled myself that I went to. Like here could be a story, right? I would go to Marshall and Ross and buy this one brand of shirt that I really liked the cut that had like fold up sleeves, and I bought every single size. And I'm literally using a ruler to measure and create my sizing chart to reach out to my manufacturer to make our clothing sizes. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. So it's like I think that happens a lot with everyone. And I think if you're okay with being messy and failing a ton, like the end result, and I think the biggest part is like taking action is so required to be successful no matter what. And it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have orange trees upside down. You're going to be using sticks in troughs. You're going to be having, you know, it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like that needs to be more presented and appreciated. And yes, Ginge, you are correct.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I feel like too often we see the beautiful end result of something, but we don't see the struggle and the everything that came before it. Because somebody asked me the other day, and they're just like, your posts are amazing or something. They said some very complimentary things, but I was like, yeah, but I posted for 2 years before anybody noticed anything that I did. 2 years I was posting on Instagram and stuff. I had content for 2 years, and it finally took me that long also to I was getting better as a creator. I was honing my craft and becoming, I was figuring out who I was and finding my voice. So don't be hard on yourself if you haven't figured that out for yourself yet, if you're still in that process, because I really feel like you just get better the more you practice it and the more you figure things out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think most folks, you get so caught up in what the end result should be rather than all the steps that are required to get you to what that end result is in the future, you know?
Yeah.
And all of those things layer and stack upon each other as life experiences. And like you're not the same creator that you were when you first started, and everything you first make is pretty awful.
Yeah.
Everything. And I'm not talking about your content. I'm talking about like Like my
Thanks,
first
Kirk.
sunglasses, I was wearing my first pair of sunglasses, our Gen 1s on the premium bar today. And I'm like, oh, I can't even believe like the difference between the new ones and these ones. It's like just so night and day. It reminds me of like what Mickey looked like as a, a costume character with that cut mouth in Disneyland, and now what he can look like with articulated eyes and mouth. It's just so like you got it. You can't get hung up on it's got to be perfect because it'll never be perfect. But it can always
No,
improve.
for
So,
sure.
you know.
Yeah, and Christina says she would create and delete a lot, and I'd say I would encourage you never to do that as a creator unless it's something that turns out you were maybe were super offensive and you didn't realize it or something like that. But even then, like I would I try not to delete my content. The only things I've removed are things that maybe have my kids in it or things that I'm like, I don't know if I want, now that I'm at this level, I don't know if I want the
Yeah.
world to see that because for my safety. But the rest of it, I think it's fun for people to go back and see, oh, this is how they used to be back in the beginning. And it allows them to see, I don't have to start at this level. I can start here, start small, and I can build just like they did. And I think it's encouraging for them, even if it's not perfect, even if you bungle through it like my intro today to this podcast.
Yeah, it was the whole like, "Hi, how are you?" part that was tough. The rest of the episode was amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that came from. I'm single momming it this week with Elliot out of town, so my brain is
Yeah,
like probably
it
50%
happens.
capacity.
Oh, it definitely happens. You feel that yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, I was dead after Busch Gardens today. I came home and I slept for like 4 hours because I'm dead. I doing extra podcasts this week, just long days, lots of Legoland day of just all that content plus
You were
driving
busy.
and just
Yeah.
it was a lot this week, and I was beat up. It happens.
Yeah, I am human. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Victoria, for that.
Yeah. Your content has to be perfect all the time.
Oh gosh, I feel that pressure, but it can't. Nope, I'm human. I'm just gonna do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, we have a few. I feel like we have to talk at least about Schweitzer Falls before we end this one because we've got to talk about Schweitzer Falls in this because
Oh,
it's
I have
part of
s- I have,
construction.
I have so much though.
I know, but I feel like we have to. It's part of the construction. You want
I
to wait?
I I I have so much though. I'm looking at the time like we really should keep these not to an hour and a half.
Um, Gosh,
I could do it in 20 minutes maybe.
I think we should just do it. I think we should go for it and just try not to
And
make
away
it
we
45
go.
minutes. I feel like the people deserve to hear about Schweitzer Falls because we've been talking about it. So,
Sure. Let's do it.
so should we talk about the person first then before we talk about the actual falls? Walt decided.
Well, I don't, sure.
Okay, so
You bet.
Walt suggested that this waterfall they knew they were going to have in the ride be suggested that he suggested that it be named after someone famous. So Harper Goff was actually the one who decided to dedicate it to Albert Falls or Albert sorry, Dr. not Albert Falls, Albert Schweitzer, who is a real doctor. He was also he did a lot of things. He was a theologian, an organist. He was like a professional musician, a writer, a humanitarian, a philosopher, a physician, a minister. He did a lot of things. So he was a friend of Albert Einstein and sometimes got mistaken for him, which is kind of funny. At age of
They look a lot alike. He
they
also
do.
looks like Mark Twain a little bit.
Yeah, I know they all have that similar. Maybe it was just that was the trend. You just look like this. We got the mustache. We got the that was the trend in that era. He lived, I should say, he was born in 1875 and lived till 1965. At age 31, he was enrolled as a medical student, but he didn't have any prior knowledge or experience and headed to French Equatorial Africa in order to serve as a doctor because he quote unquote wanted to make atonement for all the terrible crimes committed by Europeans in Africa by building a hospital in that area of Africa. So he met his wife, Helene Breslau, who was studying to be a nurse. I think they married in 1912. And so then they got on a boat and went upriver. I'm going to say this wrong. Ogowe River through the jungles to the village of Labarene. Labarene. He was known to the locals as the Great White Doctor because of his white coat that he wore, not necessarily his color of his skin. And he helped treated leprosy, dysentery, malaria, syphilis, all the injuries and fevers and things you would find in the jungle that nobody had access to curing. So he was considered like a huge hero, helping these people kind of in the middle of nowhere with no access to medicine. And he brought all the European medicine with him. So while he was traveling upriver, he came up with this idea of reverence for life. I don't know if I've been talking for a while. Did you have something you wanted to jump in there with, Kirk?
Keep going. What I have right now. I do have a tie-in, but yes, keep going.
So he received the 1952 Nobel Peace Prize for his philosophy called the Reverence of Life, which he was the 8th Frenchman to be awarded that prize. The phrase reverence for life is a translation of the German phrase Ehrfurcht von, my German's rusty, Ehrfurcht vor den Leben. These words came to him on his boat trip while searching for a universal concept of ethics of our time. He wrote, "Ethics is nothing other than reverence for life. Reverence for life affords me my fundamental principle of morality, namely that good consists in maintaining, assisting, and enhancing life, and to destroy, to harm, or to hinder life is evil." So the way that summed up James Brabazon, the author of Albert Schweitzer, a biography, he said it this way: reverence for life says that the only thing we are really sure of is that we live and want to go on living. This is something that we share with everything else that lives, from elephants to blades of grass, and of course every human being. So we are brothers and sisters to all living things, and owe to all of them the same care and respect that we wish for ourselves. Which I love that tie into the Jungle Cruise. And you're showing something ridiculous. Thanks.
Well, I felt like that was a very appropriate Walt reverence of life as he's firing the pistol on the Jungle Cruise. I couldn't help myself.
So that ties back into the quote that's found on the back of my shirt that Albert Schweitzer said, "Search and see whether there is not some place where you may invest your humanity." And that was really what he spent his life doing, was giving his entire life back to humanity to help people. Now, he did say a few questionable things about people because of the times he lived in, and there was always things that people said in those times that were maybe not so great ways of talking about groups of people. But for the most part, he really did donate his life to helping. And the hospital is still there today that he developed in that part of Africa. So that's partially why.
I think it was in Gabon.
Yeah. So that is why I decided to design this shirt. I was so inspired by the tale of Albert Schweitzer and the fact that nobody really knows this tale that well that go to Disney. I was like, that he helps so many people. And so that's why I wanted to give $2 from every purchase of this shirt back to those people of that region, because he did so much for those people in that region.
What I also think is interesting is this is rooted in actual history, right? With Albert Schweitzer. However, this is a joke that's told right before the falls that almost zero people know, right?
Yeah.
I think like people know Stanley and Livingston, but most people don't know explorers in Africa or people who were philanthropic in Africa. They don't. So when the queue up line, with the queue up line, you're showing right up to in front. It's usually like right here. It'll be like named after Albert, right? And
Dr. Albert Falls, yeah.
Nobody's thinking Dr. Albert Schweitzer. 0.0 people even know that exists, right? Mm-hmm. So which I think is interesting. So after Albert Falls.
So we get that wonderful, like the famous, I think they call it the beautiful Schweitzer Falls. I call it the legendary here, but they got the beautiful Schweitzer Falls named after the Dr. Albert, and everybody's like Schweitzer is thinking Schweitzer in their head, and they say Falls instead. And yeah, that he was a Nobel Peace Prize winner for taking care of people. Like, I love that. I can't even tell you how much I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
So
So I have a couple of things. In the backstory of Disney, Schweitzer Falls actually has a physical location on a map, which is really strange because, I mean, they do talk about, if you think about it, in the Jungle Cruise, they talk about Cambodia, they talk about Nile crocodiles, you know what I mean? So they are giving us physical locations. Schweitzer Falls, they never talk about it in the actual attraction, but it's located off of the Nile River, but it's really close to Kilimanjaro. So I actually have a couple of images of where I think this would be based on some of the documents that I found. So here's, most people, when they think about the Nile River, they're, oops, sorry, I'm holding this pen too. They think about Egypt, right? Because the Nile goes on for miles and miles and miles. And it does. There's so many tributaries too, right? But there's one that it goes all the way down and goes all the way and intersects right here by Kilimanjaro. So I actually think that it's either this section or this section by Lake Victoria. So on either side would be the actual physical location of this fake Schweitzer Falls. However, if you look at, I mean, they have some serious rapids there. So this totally could physically happen. In fact, you can take different various tours and go whitewater rafting, which can this be a Distory history trip where we just go and actually
Yes.
whitewater raft?
Let's do it.
You know, on the
I'm in.
Zambezi River in Kilimanjaro. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, let's
So-
do it. I'm there.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting because I'd never known that there was a physical location tied to it as well.
Yeah, that is interesting. Do you have any other facts about the falls before we go to construction of it?
No, I have more structural stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're
Someone
Yeah.
asked if it was based on Victoria. They've heard that it's based on Victoria Falls. And I think that it was based on a couple different waterfalls that I've heard. I actually have notes I have a sketch of Harper Goff that he made to Walt during the construction of it, okay, so this says on the bottom of it, it says, Walt, this is what I hope will be known as Schweitzer Falls, which he actually spells wrong. Don't worry about the junk in the right hand because new plants will hide this on opening day. Note, this is looking back on the way out and forward coming back, and then HG. So this is the original notes. You can see he would send Walt notes with photographs of the progress of the falls. And so this is what his actual note to Walt Disney at the bottom. And this is part of the construction of it there, which we'll talk about more. And then
Ooh, hang on. I'm losing you. Give me 1 second.
okay.
Oh, why? Give me.
My connection's unstable.
No, mine was unstable. I just dumped. It was jumping between my repeater out here. Literally, my movement from this to this was making it jump Wi-Fi hotspots.
That's
So
fun.
I'm off of that. I'm doing. I'm on 5G now.
It's the
Yeah,
spices.
sorry about that.
It's the
It's my
spices
fault.
behind you. They're doing it. Interfering with the connection.
It was, you know what I think it was? It probably was the gourmet fried onion pieces or potentially the everything bagel seasonings, which we have a wide
Oh, it's for sure
array
the
of.
everything. There's so much stuff in there.
Yeah. There is. It's messing with the signal.
All right. I have this one too this is a great photo because you can see the shape of the falls taking the kind of like in the top there, that little kind of U-shaped concrete is Schweitzer Falls. And then this is Main Street, USA. that is in front of it. So you can see how close Schweitzer Falls is to Main Street, USA. Literally on the other side of those buildings is the Jungle Cruise, which we'll talk about more in our sounds episode, but which is why Walt Disney could hear the sounds of the Jungle Cruise so much in his firehouse apartment, was because it was just literally up against the backside. We saw in that video that Kirk showed earlier that they had that stand of eucalyptus that was kind of dividing it from Main Street, which is still there today from what I saw when I went back there. But yeah, Schweitzer Falls, very close to Main Street, USA. You don't think about when you're there.
Yeah.
And then the actual construction of it, let me find my notes on that. So it was made by another company. A structural engineer, Bill Wheeler, and his associate, John Wise, designed the steel frame to hold the water some 20 feet in the air and then cantilever it over the river. They also had huge electric pumps to feed the falls that were supplied by electrical engineer Jacob Sam Hamill. And so then they have there's a steel and concrete base. And then they have that video of this too, from that one that we talked about, we had earlier. They had a steel concrete base, and then they would cover it with gunite, like the swimming pool material. And then they would put another layer of concrete over it and then carve that to give it texture, and make it look like rocks. So the pool that feeds the falls is about 1,200 cubic feet of water, 9,000 gallons. So it really did need to be a strong structure because of that. And then it weighs more than 37 tons. Do you have something, or should I keep going? Because I have more.
I'm trying to find the part in the video where they're showing. Here we go. I found it.
Okay.
All right.
There it is. I love that model.
And this is Harper
There
Goff
it
on
is.
the
Here's
right.
Harper with his model of the rockwork for Schweitzer Falls. And I think having
That's the
background
gunite.
art direction, they knew how to do this, applying the metal lath on a paper base and then shooting it with what's called gunite, like you do a swimming pool. And then another layer of cement after that's dried is put on, and that is actually carved to get the beautiful textures. And we still do this pretty much basically the same today. And the finish is so permanent that the Matterhorn and many of the structures like Schweitzer Falls are still there 50-some years later. Now this is from our Piranha pool looking back at Schweitzer Falls and back into the native encampment.
So it's interesting.
There's again one of those upside down trees.
So it's interesting that he says that other ones are still standing and still working, but this one actually collapsed back in, I think it was 2004, might have been early 2005. Schweitzer Falls actually did collapse at Disneyland. The original one did, because it was just old and it was in very poor structural shape. So they completely rebuilt it. And then what they did, I'll show you two pictures. I'll show you two pictures of the waterfalls side by side, that what it used to look like and what it looks like now. Because now the waterfall extends out about 2 feet further, and there's more division in the water than there used to be. Like if you've ever been to Disneyland and you see that there's like 3 strands of water going down, whereas Disney World, there's like one solid sheet of water. Like this is what it used to look like, was one solid sheet of water. And so they've changed that. Well, you can still see there's 3, but it's more pronounced than it used to be. And then there's also the biggest difference though is they changed their pump mechanisms. So what happened was that even with regular maintenance, the pumps would get clogged. And so every once in a while they would just like shut off, and they would have to keep them off for a while to not only fix them, but also because they were overheating and things, they would have to do a lot of repair work on it. So you would go through and there actually wouldn't be the backside of water. There was no O2H. There was nothing. Because there was no water. So what they did was they changed the pump system so that instead there would be less water going out. They didn't run the pumps at full capacity. So there's less water going down now than there used to be, so that the pumps don't get overheated, so that you can always have the backside of water. So this is, let me see if I can find one from today to show you the difference in the waterfall. So this is a little up close, but this is what it looks like today. Very
Oh,
obviously
what?
different.
There's
Lot-
like no water.
Yeah, there's a lot less water. And a lot of people have said that it's because of like the water shortage in California and whatnot, but that's not really it because it's recirculated water from the lagoon or the river rather. So it has everything to do with the pumps. They don't want the pumps overheating because it's a lot more noticeable to have no water there than to have less water. So that's why they did that.
Yeah,
Which I think is really interesting.
there's not a lot of O2H over there.
Yeah, because this is what it used to look like what you're showing. So yeah, it's unfortunately, so the change was made back when it broke in 2004, 2005. So it's actually fairly recently-ish in Disney history. I feel like that was yesterday, but I'm old, so. And then we already showed that other one. I have this great, if you've ever wanted to stand up on the back of the boat of the Jungle Cruise, they did that when they were testing it.
And there was the guy who's in his like swim trunks with his mask on that we saw going underneath the boat prior.
He's ready. He's ready for any scenario.
Might have to jump on that tube, get it fixed.
Yeah, I have just all kinds. I love this one because you can see how the plants are really just not grown up yet. They're very young in this one, even though they have a couple tall trees. This is where that canopy really comes into play. And this is, of course, going in front of the falls before they go behind it. Do you have anything else on Schweitzer Falls, my friend?
I do. Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to find. Where is she from?
Let's see if I can find some more.
All right, I got it.
Okay.
Okay. So Albert Falls, the actual, not the Albert Schweitzer. We're talking about the Albert Falls from the Jungle Cruise, who basically sets up why we even have a ride, the backstory of the ride. So Dr. Albert Falls, he's also coincidentally a scientist, a theologian, and an explorer. And he's navigating the remote rivers of the world. And he discovers things like the sunken Cambodian temple, which if you're non-alcoholic, her name is Shirley. Then you have, that was on June 5th, which is kind of funny. June 5th, 1888. I was born June 6th, 1984. So, it's weird that June 5th. But anyway. Then Schweitzer Falls was discovered on August 12th, 1891. And then in 1911, which we see this in the Skipper Canteen as well, is the establishment of the Jungle Navigation Company itself. And the JNC also ends up being a home for himself. And in a lot of the attractions, there is these members of a group called the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. And in Skipper Canteen, they actually have an SEA secret room that you can dine in, which is really cool. But in that room, this is why it's interesting and fun for me, is you can find a picture of Albert Falls in front of Shirley's temple. So there's Shirley's temple.
I love that.
And there's Albert Falls. And I was trying to find her. There's another member of the SEA in here as well, and she's all the way in the back, and her name is Luana Texera, and she's the one that had actually taken this picture. So supposedly, I haven't found this yet, but in the Skipper Canteen, supposedly her Club Fez is somewhere around the library of books, as well as a certificate of Albert Falls discovering Schweitzer Falls on August 12th, 1891. So I need to go and find where those are in Skipper Canteen. But here is Luana. She's in the back taking the picture. So this would be a Kevin Lively story.
The fezzes, I think, are on the left side of when you walk through those books. There's all the fezzes are lined up there on the
Yeah.
left hand side. So if you're looking for them,
Well,
I
I
don't know
will
if
be
I found the
looking for
certificate
him.
yet. So that's gonna be. I'm gonna have to make reservations for when I go in March. Something I forgot to mention about Albert Schweitzer and the connection to the Jungle Cruise, which we'll talk a little bit more about all of this in the queue later. But if you've ever wondered, and they have the last aid station in the queue in Disney World and in Disneyland. If you're up in the upper part, the upper deck, the second story, you'll see all these medicine bottles, and you only really see them if the queue is pretty long. But you walk by this. This is a nod to, of course, the Dr. Albert Schweitzer.
Oh, it's like a malaria net.
A malaria net, and there's bottles back there of medicine. So we've got last aid, and then we've got, so it's, I would assume this is a nod to that from what I've seen. This is an assumption. This is Kate's assumption. So I'm going to lay that out there. But I'm pretty sure that this is a connection, though, back to Albert Schweitzer and all of the hospital that he built in Africa and the falls.
Yeah, that would make sense. And in the queue, Albert Falls has his office there, so his SEA Fez is in his office. Yeah,
Well,
it's
and Alberta
really
is his daughter. So
in Alberta
yeah.
Falls. There's also a like a abstract. I don't know what you would call it because it's more like a cubism style of Alberta Falls. There's a painting in Skipper Canteen's like rotunda area in the front, like while you're still
Well, and
waiting.
the same one is in Disneyland in their queue. So we'll definitely talk about that more when we get into the queue part. But the exact same painting is in both places. So
Yes,
if you're
and
looking for it.
Jackie Shirley's temple is actually spelled SHIR space LEE, not
Surely
as
that can't be
Shir-
true.
Right. Well, I'm very serious about it, and don't call me Shirley. I just found out the other day that movie is a direct spot for spot, cut for cut of another airplane movie that's like really serious. So they bought the rights to the other movie, and then they just remade that movie and made it funny. And I'm like, that I had no idea that Airplane was straight up taken from like another airplane movie and just remade funny. I think that's hysterical. And it's so iconic.
funny.
It's well done.
Well, I think I mostly know that joke from Michael Scott. I think he made it famous for our generation.
Do I have to do like comedy 101
No,
and just
I
pick a
do
bunch
know.
of
I
movies?
do know. Well, Michael Scott
You're
rips off every movie, so that's
Yeah.
that's what he does.
It's true.
I mean, I'm not saying I don't know the other movie. I'm just saying that's how I think most of our generation would know that joke is probably by Michael Scott of The Office.
Fair
Just
enough.
saying. Yeah. I think I've got just one more small thing about construction, unless you have anything else. Do you have anything?
Oh man, I got rid of it was like over 9,000 metric tons of water per 2 minutes in terms
Yeah,
of like
that's a lot of
churn.
water.
I was like, "Oh my God, dude, that's like so much water."
And we've mentioned it before, but we should mention it again that this is where they dye. This is where the dye is mixed and like mixed for the river for the level of turbidity for the color of the water.
They're churning it by waterfall. No other river cruise churns their dye by waterfall. Sorry, that's my Willy Wonka impression.
Okay.
Dude, he talks about that. Like, I thought that was a really
Yeah.
cool, when we found out that they churned it through the waterfall, I thought that was really fascinating because, yeah, it would make sense. And yeah, they also don't want you to see any of the bottom and the basin of it. So,
Yeah, and it is what was it, 3 to 8 feet deep? I think is how deep it was. I wrote it down somewhere here, but it's not. It's about the same as the rivers of America are the same. It's 2 to 8 feet deep. They're depending, so it's kind of like shallower on the edges and then deeper in the center where the boat goes through. Because I know I made that one TikTok a couple days ago, and people were like, where I said people had to get off the boat on opening day and actually walk through the rivers of America to get off because it derailed and like the water was going over the side of the Mark Twain because it was so heavy because they had way too many people on it. So people would hold their shoes above their head and they would walk out of the water on opening day of Disney. That day was such a disaster. But people were like, they got in the water, they had to swim. I was like, it was 2 feet deep in that section. So they didn't really have to walk that far, which is true of a lot of these things. So it looks a lot deeper than it is. People were scared to get in the water because it was dyed. So, and you can imagine, like, you look down in the Jungle Cruise and you're like, I don't want to get in there. Who knows how deep that thing is,
We just had a Jungle Cruise boat sink. What was that, like 2 years ago?
Yeah.
It flooded
that was
in Walt
fun.
Disney World, and
I remember that.
yeah, I mean the whole thing was on the ground. It was just sunk.
You know, one thing that we forgot to talk about, and this is just really short, is we did not talk about the names of the boats. We talked about the boats, but we didn't talk about the names of them.
Okay.
But this is just really quick, just the original names of the boats. The Congo Queen, of course, we've already mentioned in a previous episode because it is the flagship boat named after the African queen. And then they had the Ganges Gal, Suwannee Lady, Amazon Belle, Mekong Maiden, Nile Princess, and the Irrawaddy Woman were the original boat names. But only the Congo Queen and Ganges Gal were operating during opening day. So they just had 2 boats. Which is probably why people had really long lines and a lot of people didn't get to go on any rides because there was not very many things operating. It does have a capacity of 20,000 people per day though on the boats. So.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention it. I feel like I'm like, oh no, I need to.
No, I know it's a non sequitur. That's why I'm just moving on.
Moving on. Okay. Well, I do have one last great quote from Harper Goff, if you want to hear it. In terms of wildlife, they were going to import birds into the Jungle Cruise to give it more realism. That was one of their early ideas. And so Harper Goff said, Walt had asked me to line up a source of wild birds, crown herons, waterfowl, but when we filled the river with water, all kinds of wild birds found it by themselves, and we canceled all our orders for the exotic ones. So they were going to have all these exotic birds, which kind of ties back into that original prospectus that we talked about where they were going to sell exotic birds in Adventureland.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, decided against that. So in Adventureland.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, decided against that. So
yeah.
Well, that's. I think that's it. Was that enough?
Yeah, and it was only an hour and 22-minute episode, not an hour and a half. So we came in under time.
See, I told you we could do it.
Mm-hmm. No, I think we've been doing really good. It's always hard to chunk these things out. I mean, in all full realism, we could go on forever, and there's so much intricacy in these. Like, there's 256 pages in the standard operating procedure booklet, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not easy. It's not light reading, you know? It's like you like to pour through this stuff, and to figure out what to put next is always like, where's the natural stopping point, you know?
No, but it's fun because you and I both have different things. So it's like, I'm sure each of us could probably talk for an hour on this stuff we researched by ourselves without talking to each other.
Yeah, but together is better. Honestly,
together is better. So
I always
better.
enjoy these because you have different information than and I have different information, and the marriage of the two makes it really, really fun. So
yeah, absolutely.
And more informative for sure.
And you can put up ridiculous pictures of Walt while I'm
saying
something meaningful.
You were saying like the quality of life and how blessed and revered it is, and I just have Walt firing a fake pistol on the Jungle Cruise. It was too good not to use at the time.
We balance each other out in that way, I guess.
You need any good show should have some levity in it, I feel.
So true. I know we didn't have enough jokes in this one, but I'm sure when we talk about Jungle Skipper scripts, we'll have all.
Oh
kinds
my
of
gosh,
jokes,
yes.
so
There's so many good jokes. There's a lot.
We'll have to figure out where we're going next. There might be a slight schedule change for next week because I'm going to be on an airplane flying back from Disneyland. I'm going to Disneyland all next week, so I'll be doing some live streaming from there. But we might have a little schedule change for Distory next week. Kirk and I will have to chat about that, but heads up. But yeah, and Also, if you missed it before, I do have a new shirt that's for the series, in case you want to wear your Jungle Cruise shirt for the series. This one says the legendary Schweitzer Falls. We'll go over it later. And then it has the O2H Club on the boat. And then on the back is that quote that we talked about from Dr. Albert Schweitzer. And again, $2 from each shirt is going to go to the Water Project to help people in Africa who don't have access to clean water. So you can get that on my link in my bio or on my website at DisneyCicerone.com, where I can say my own name. But yeah, thanks.
How are you? Hi, how are you?
Stop! You're never gonna let me live it down.
Oh, it's so good.
See,
It's so good because you're so brilliant. That is like a moment of brilliance.
I was not
To
prepared
say hi.
I was not prepared to like intro the show, so my brain was like, "What do I say now?"
Oh, it was a dream.
I'm so used to you introing the show. Threw me through a loop. I don't know. I like can't. So, no, but this was really fun. I love talking this construction. And I tell you, if anybody, I'll include that link to that Tony Baxter video in our podcast notes for you guys. And I'll probably post it in Distory on Discord as well, which is in our link in bio. If you're not following us or joining our community on Discord, we'd love to chat with you there because we have all kinds of Disney history goodness to share. But that's where I'll post a link to that video for you guys so that you can watch it for yourself. Because it's not just the jungles. Where I'll post a link to that video for you guys so that you can watch it for yourself. Because it's not just the Jungle Cruise. It's actually a couple sections of all of the footage of them building Disneyland with Tony Baxter narrating. And it's a wonderful, wonderful extra to watch if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I could listen to him talk about rides all the time.
I know. His Haunted Mansion one is like one of my favorites.
When he's in the door knocker scene and there's no music going, but the mechanics are still working for the door knockers, it is so loud. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a cacophony of boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, how are these things not beating up the doors more, you know? Because they're hitting with some force.
Metal. Are they hitting the metal? Oh, some of them are hitting the door.
Yeah,
I'm going to look more carefully when I go see it. And also, can we just say how amazing it is that they added that vampire bat to Disneyland's Haunted Mansion? Like,
crazy.
What?
Absolutely crazy.
I mean, oh my gosh. I was freaking out when I saw that. So
it's crazy because they took down Haunted Mansion Holiday to do the transition back, and then boom, you get an extra piece of storyline of a Marc Davis concept art. Like, get real. This is crazy.
I know. And it does such a good job of like really sticking to that.
The representation
art, like, the bones
is
and everything.
because the way the bones are angled out of that, it almost looks like a doggy bowl a little bit on the base. I know it's not. It's basically like a cage to like the bottom of the cage, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope they add that into the Florida version eventually. But you guys still haven't got the one-eyed cat yet either, so it might just be Disneyland that's getting
No,
additions.
we only get it in the queue. At least I can touch the one-eyed cat, and it's like.
I know.
It's about all I
get. You can touch yours. We're not allowed to touch ours. Although technically ours is the one-eyed cat is just like you can actually buy a statue of it like online in some home goods area, and they just added a red eye to it, which is really funny. So they just purchased it and made it into a thing. But it's still fun to get a nod to it there. But the bat is so amazing. It's from 1968. Marc Davis did this whole thing with the bat. I did a TikTok about it in case you want to see more, but I was like, Kirk, they added the bat. So we just talked about that like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we were saying like that's so. Well, it was when you and Elliot gifted me the books, and I'm flipping through it, and I'm like, this bat is crazy. This is wild, and you were like, I know, this is awesome, and boom, bam, it's amazing when. I mean, that is literally recreating a piece of history that could have happened. So I still have fingers crossed for Thunder Mesa.
I know. You never know.
You never know.
Gosh.
I mean, come on.
Could really use it.
Come on. They gave us a blue sky to Frontierland in Walt Disney World talking about that exact same area. It could work.
You know what they should have done instead of just like revamping parts of Splash Mountain? Like it's a missed opportunity because what they could have done is built Thunder Mesa but made that like canoe ride into the Tiana ride. Like they could have had Tiana not as a canoe, but like they could have made it into that themed as Tiana. We could have still gotten the Western River expedition on the bottom, and then they could have found a way to wind it into Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. It could have happened with a restaurant, a Twilight restaurant that you guys could be sitting in, like Blue Bayou. Like, come on, dream bigger, friends, rather than just changing over a few small things. Let's just dream big, Disney. If you're listening, I'm challenging you. Dream bigger.
They're like, dude, we gave her a bat. I thought that would make her stop talking for a while.
They're like, well, at this point, I'm like, if it takes them like, what, 5 years to do Tron or whatever, like, we probably shouldn't ask them to do big things.
Yeah,
Will not be open for like a decade.
it's true.
Anyway, just really excited about the bat. I'm excited to see it next week. I'm so happy.
I know.
I'm so happy.
That's going to be awesome. I think everybody's excited.
Yeah. Well, and you guys eventually get the Hatbox Ghosts. Let's hope. Let's hope they don't scrap that. I haven't heard anything about it since they announced it. So
I think we're going to get it, like probably just like in August. I think they'll release it right as Not So Scary. That's a good timing for it.
yeah, that would make sense. Like Disneyland gets this, all those overlay. Like, you guys can have this.
Dude, but we'll get a Hatbox Ghost. It was
I
it was
know.
the best announcement because it actually was an announcement for
I
Disney
kind of
World.
wish, though, that they had done the Man in the Web instead. Not gonna lie, just so you'd have something really unique to Florida that was its kind of original thing. I think the Man in the Web put the spiders back in there. I think that would have been really cool. Personally.
But my problem though is that I love, and I learned this from you. I love the backstory concept that he's kind of like the morality tale part of the mansion, right? Like we don't
Yeah.
have morality in the mansion. We just have decapitation. So I like the concept that he knows and that there's an accountability,
That's
know,
why
to
she's stuck
to
in
her
the attic
actions.
for all
Exactly.
eternity.
Yeah.
Poor Constance.
Poor
Crime doesn't
Constance.
pay.
First of all, she's not poor. She took all
not
that
poor, that's
opulence.
true.
She's sitting with all her material wealth, you know?
She's true. She's not very poor. I
No.
just feel bad. I'm like, I feel like anybody, like, well, she did a lot of bad things though. She doesn't seem
You feel
remorseful about
bad
it.
for a murderer who decapitated husbands so that she could climb a social and economic ladder?
I like to think that anybody can be redeemed, Kirk. Just say it.
But like 5 times redeemed? Like one, maybe, you know, I don't know where.
Maybe
One maybe.
one's acceptable, but not.
Yeah, and not a string of them, you know. She's literally like a Black Widow, you know. It's not fair.
Oh gosh. Okay, fair enough. No, I do like the morality tale of it. That sometimes, like, not everybody's going to be partying in the graveyard. Sometimes you're going to pay for your crime. So
Yeah, you have to
It's
pay for
true.
your sins.
it's
you know?
true. I can
The,
feel like
you know-
petition for the octopus. I agree. Yes, I like the
Oh,
octopus.
yeah, the octopus was great.
Man-eating octopus.
I like how they were talking about possibly using, in my research today, and I know it's before animals, but I'm just going to talk about it. When they made 20,000 Leagues, they had this giant squid, and they're like, we should throw it in the Jungle Cruise somehow. Like, that
Yeah.
was an initial thought, and it actually showed up in some concept art, too. But it was, I heard it talked about in concept art. I couldn't find the concept art, so I'm still going to try to look for it
I've
while
been
we do
searching for that
animals.
too. Well, and Bob Matty, who did the 20,000 Leagues squid, his window is the one that's on Main Street that disappeared and was changed to Seb Moray and then changed back to Bob Matty. So I'm still trying to figure out why that happened. Did somebody have something against him and then they forgave him? Like, what in the world happened there? Because Seb Moray was also an Imagineer person. So there's a big old giant mystery on Main Street with that window, and I have not gotten answers. I've asked everybody I can think of, and nobody can tell me what happened there. So that's definitely a mystery.
It's all these ones they're so fun, and uncovering them and trying to uncover them is so great. And when you can find those primary source documents, it's like these little wins, like silly little wins are so much fun. Well, I'm gonna find you. It's in Herb Ryman's Adventurelands somewhere.
Yeah,
Find
I
it.
mean, yeah, it's just like a treasure hunt. It's like how I
Yeah.
think of it. So it's a modern day history treasure hunt. It's so much fun. It's like I love that I get to do this for a living. I get to
Nobody's
hunt
doing
treasure for
this
a living.
either.
Oh,
Like
I love
because
it.
this is a little intense for most folks. But that's why I think that's why it's interesting enough, it's niche enough that as long as we don't stop, it's a great way to relive and tell the tales that currently aren't being told.
Right. No, 100%. And I feel like there's so many people in Disney's history. We always hear about the big ones. We hear about Marc Davis. We hear about, Harper Goff. But we don't hear like the stories of like some of the other people that really did contribute a lot to Disney's history. Some of them are women. Some of them are just, more minor characters but they still contributed their creativity, their workmanship, there's so many construction workers that, worked on the Matterhorn that physically made the Matterhorn. Like why, telling those stories I think is really important because there are a lot of really great stories out there.
As Walt Disney famously said, you can design and create and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make a dream a reality.
That's so true. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite quotes I've seen from him in a long time. They had that all over Epcot during the construction walls, and I just keep laughing because it's a funny analogy.
Walt was really all about people though. He said, it was people that made the show, if this is all a big show. Yes, the cast members are obviously a huge part of it too, because they're performers in this show that they're putting on, but the people themselves are participants in the show. They're not just, observers. They're not just audience. They are in the show making it happen. And I feel like that was really Walt's thing is like the park didn't come alive until the people walked in the gates. And that's when he, started tearing up watching them all flood through. These people.
I connect with Walt and his mentality on performance, safety, ethics, and not doing the job correctly versus doing it the least cost effective way because they know that the payoff will come from through the customer's experience and the guest's experience. So I just love that. And just there's now I'm looking at another quote that is so true about just persistence. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them.
Yep.
So just keep. Dude, he talks about doors. I talk about doors. Dude, I think I might be Walt Disney. I don't know how to say this, but I might be. I'm not Walt Disney. But.
You're that cryogenically frozen one that they thawed out.
I just
did reverse aging or something.
I have a mushy Walt brain inside my skull right now, and that's probably what it is.
Frankenstein Kirk together with Walt.
Wait, hang on. You got to hear this because I've said something very similar to this, not as eloquent or as simple. We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths.
Yeah.
I love all these quotes. These quotes are great. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
But I love a lot of his like lesser known ones. If you get that biography of Walt, the Walt, an American Original, there's all kinds of quotes from him in there. And they're not just like the ones that people always hear either. So those are some of the ones I like to highlight. Like, some of that story about him saying that, basically he wasn't going to be around forever. And he's like, and, we're just going to enjoy what we've got here. And I'm going to remember this night on his last kind of outing with everybody who helped him build Disneyland. Such an emotional moment, but, it was simple. It was very simple, but it was emotional. And then you have Roy Disney, who has the most hilarious quotes ever. Everybody thinks he's such a stick in the mud, but he was hilarious. Like, he was the one that was like, let him pee from the parking lot. Did you see that one, Kirk?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll send that one to you. But I'm going to tell a story because now I've just said it. But they, after the disastrous opening day of Disneyland, on July 18th was the day they were going to open to the public. So July 17th was like a press preview day, and everything went wrong, literally everything. So on that day, on July 18th, Roy Disney woke up and is like, is anybody even going to come? Like, after the scathing reviews that came out in the paper that day of Disneyland and how awful it was, is anybody actually going to show up to this thing? So he had so much anxiety about it. And is anybody actually going to show up to this thing? So he had so much anxiety about it. And he's driving down the freeway and he's seeing a lot of traffic, but he's thinking maybe people are going to the beach. Maybe they're going somewhere else. And then as he gets closer to Disneyland, it's like gridlock. It takes him an hour to get into Disneyland's parking lot. It turns out they had to open the lot 3 hours ahead of time because there were so many people waiting to get in. It was clogging up all of the freeways in Anaheim. And when he got to the parking attendants, they said, people are like, the kids are peeing all over the place because it's, like they can't get in because they've been waiting for so long. With a sense of relief, Roy Disney says, God bless him, let him pee. Because he was so happy to have so many people that they were waiting to get in. Gotta be one of my favorite Disney quotes ever.
It's a good one.
But it's such a weird one. It's such a bizarre thing. But he just was so relieved that their dream was not going to crash and burn. Because there was little kids waiting to go to the bathroom. Or not, so to speak.
They were already relieved.
They were already relieved. Anyway, well, thank you for this amazing episode. I appreciate hanging out and chatting Disney history with all of you guys, and you especially, Kirk, too. This is always so much fun.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm very excited for your upcoming trip, and I'm sure everybody's going to be stoked on live streams and or static content that'll come out of it, because it's always fantastic. You always have a list. Do we have a thematic for the week? Is it hay bales and snails?
Bathrooms.
It's toilets. Okay. Well, that's what are you, Roy
Not
Disney?
toilets. Bathrooms. No, they have a couple stories that involve restrooms, so I was like, I realized I don't have any pictures of them.
Kate,
no,
you don't
outside.
Need to get
it's going to be outside, but I'm like, I realize I never take any footage of the restrooms for kind of good reason, because it's awkward. I don't want to get people in there. This is so awkward.
Excuse me, I am part of Disney Media. I run a history show on toilets.
What?
Yeah, it's
potty
restrooms,
humor,
which is
potty
so
humor.
weird. But I'm also getting to go tour Disney Studios, which I can't film there, but I can take photos. So I'm going to take some pictures there on that tour. Which
Are you bringing fancy camera?
Yes, because
Nice.
I need to. Because that was my other thing, is I need to take photos for the cover of my next book, because I'm almost done editing it for me, and then I have to send it out to my people to read it. So it's a romantic suspense that's based on Disney history nerds who live stream in the parks. So I don't know why I would know anything about that.
Very weird topic.
So it's quite a wild ride. This one's based in Disneyland, but it's going to be a series, and the next one's going to be based in Disney World. So I'm going to write that a bit when I'm in March, because I've already kind of had the concept in my head. So
Can you tell us the protagonist names? If it's Dirk and
no,
I would be very upset.
it is not based on real life people. It's influenced by some of my experiences, but not based on real life people. No, it's Leah and Lucas is their names. So,
Oh.
yeah. No,
It's like Leia and Luke.
maybe.
No.
You'll see. You'll see.
I'm
No,
excited.
you'll see. Yeah, it's good.
I gotta sign
not
up and
Dirk.
get on your PR list. I gotta put in TikTok creator with 122,000 followers interested in being on the PR list for upcoming book reading.
No. Yeah. So that will be. I'm hoping to release that one by late spring is my goal. So I'm going to go to Disneyland, take some photos, but I'm also going to do some live streaming there. So if you guys want to hang out with me, and we'll talk some Disney history live from Disneyland this next week. I'm not sure which days yet. I know I might be going to Club 33 with a friend, maybe. We'll see. And I'm doing the studio tour on Thursday. So I'll keep you guys posted in Discord when I'm going to go live, when I figure out my schedule, because I've got a lot of people to meet up with. But
That's gonna be awesome.
yeah, and I'm excited to come back and see all of you guys in Disney World in March, too. So that'll be really fun.
It's overrated. Don't come here. The food stinks.
Well, the parks are great. The parks are good. The rides are good. I'm there for the rides, right? That's me.
Yeah.
I'm there for the rides. I'm not there for the food anyway. We're fine.
Yeah.
It'll be
Okay.
great.
Yeah, I'm not getting her started. I don't want to get involved.
Are
Jackie
you going
about
back
the
to your
food.
normal live schedule next week?
No, President's Day, I'm going to take off.
Oh,
So it's going to
yeah.
be Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday is next week. So,
Okay.
and maybe Thursday, because I have media preview for Busch Gardens Serengeti Flyer, which I saw moving today and was like, oh, this is really
Wow.
scary. Like my palms are
fun.
sweating.
That's
It's 135 feet of horror. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's great. So pretty much, well, then that means if you're in the parks a lot, then maybe we can do some dual live streaming, which would be really fun. So
Yeah.
we should figure that out.
Yeah. I'll be
Disneyland and Disney
around.
World
I'll be around.
simultaneously. Alrighty, I'm gonna sign off. I gotta go make my kids dinner. So
Okay. See you.
have a great night, everybody. Thank you for joining
Thanks
us.
for hanging.
We appreciate you guys.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye. Guys.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.